Man, PSP Go was probably my favorite PSP. Uh, I don't think for functional purposes, maybe just nostalgic purposes, I would say. It's a really good little console. I like it. Um, as you can see, it's not even my hand size, so it's a decent little PSP, isn't it? Anyways, I got this PSP at a thrift store. It was $25. I didn't know if it worked because the battery was dead. So I went ahead and I said, okay, you know what? I can probably get 25 bucks out of this thing if it doesn't work and I have to sell it as a broken console. And for 25 bucks, I mean, you can't go wrong, right? Here's what it does. I charged the battery. I took the battery right out. I just undid this case here and the battery is under there. You can kind of pop it out. It's attached with a little cable. I charged the battery with a universal LiPo charger that I have. It was really hard to get the little tiny connector onto it. I used a piece of tape. So here's what it does when you start it up. You get that nice PSP startup noise. Note that the screen isn't coming on. And that's it, just a black screen. So it still makes the noises. And the thing is, what I found out is if you look very, 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 very close, you can see a little bit of the screen. It's there's no backlight at all. I went on eBay and I bought myself a brand new screen. That was $30. And just in case, replacement mainboard to screen cable. It's a giant flex cable. That was $5. So let's turn this thing off and we'll take it apart and see if we can't get that screen replaced. Step number one is to get that back cover off. These tiny little screws. There we go. You take our plastic opening tool and just pull gently on both sides. Once you get under there, it's like opening a book. Huh, I forgot a couple of screws. There's a couple screws on the top, so you gotta take those off, I guess. And that should just peel off like a book. There's the inside of your PSP Go. You can see the battery with the little tiny connector that I was talking about. We'll go ahead and, oh, okay, take that little piece off too. Apparently that just falls off on its own. Go ahead and take that battery out. Give it a little tug and it just pops right out. Done. Alright, next thing would be these little trigger buttons. Trigger buttons gotta come out. So they're just held on by these little screws here. And they just pop out like that. Easy peasy. This one's got a tiny ribbon cable in the way. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a tiny ribbon cable right here. And it's right over top of the screw I need to unscrew. So what you have to do, especially with this kind, is pull up on this little tab. See how it popped up like that? Now you can just pull that ribbon cable and hold it out of the way and get your screw out. Pop. Next step. Remove the single screw holding the logic board in place. That would be this guy right here. There's a single screw for the logic board. And that's out. And the bottom plate screws, which are, flip it over here, here and here. Let's take those out right there. Bottom plate screws, done. Okay, next step. remove the bottom plate. That just kind of pulls out. Sounds like you broke it. You didn't break it. It's okay. Let's see. 2 headphone jack port screws. Apparently mine only had 1. So I guess I'm not the first person that has been inside of this PSP. Probably the guy wondering what the heck was wrong with his screen. With this connector, you can again just pop up the little black tab, and that'll just slide right out. Same with this. Oh, sorry, no, that one is different. Oh, it just pulls out. Okay. Right on. Next step, pull this guy out. Right. Ta-da. Now, there's a clear plastic cover here. You have to pull that out as well. So just pull up on that with your plastic opening tool, and it should just pop right out. No worries. Okay, now, we can't get that logic board out yet. We have to pull the display cable, which is through this fancy little connector here. You can see it rolling up and down with the movement of the PSP. Wow. That doesn't look too good, does it? Looks pretty scratched up from being pushed up and down and up and down and up and down. Anyways, so we got to get that display cable out of there by pulling up slightly on the logic board. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. There is the display cable here. It's connected to the logic board, and if you just push up on it, it pops right out, and your buttons will fall out too, so be wary of that. Now, your stupid... Don't forget to unplug this cable right here, by the way, because I just did, and I realized that my logic board is still attached to the PSP. So just go ahead and pull that right out. There is everything that controls your PSP right there. So there's an empty PSP shell. Now what we want to do is get to that screen, which is still inside this casing. Show you where the screen actually connects to the PSP. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. I like to start with the bottom ones, whatever. Don't you can do the top first if you want. And once your screws are out, you are okay to remove the front. I like to call it a bezel, even though it's technically the entire screen housing, whatever. But because it's kind of wrapped around like a bezel, oops, don't break your PSP while doing this, by the way. So the idea here is to get your plastic tool underneath the black portion. You can kind of see it here. And you want to increase the gap around the bottom of it and the black plastic portion. It does take a little bit of work, but as you can see, you can get in there pretty easily with your plastic opening tool. It's like opening any other electronic device. Just go around and pop the connectors. Pop the little plastic guys out of there. It's okay if it snaps closed. Don't worry about that. Ta-da! So there it is. And what you can do, screen is still connected, so you use your plastic tool to get in there and just pop that off. Ta-da! Your screen came out. The next part. Here's my new screen. Here's the old screen. I think we're going to have to take this apart. again, the idea here is to get around the edge of the screen and just increase the gap between the screen and the front portion, which I'm going to have to sand because it's pretty scratched up in that one little area there. Go ahead with your plastic opening tool and jam it underneath there. Now there are a set of instructions that say be very careful when doing this because too much pressure and you'll crack the screen. Thing is, I'm not really worried about this screen because it's broken, so I'm going to be pretty rough on it, and if that bugs you, you know, don't watch. Anyways, back to getting that screen off of there. Oh, I heard a snap. Just pop that out, maybe. See if the new one fits in there. Oh, it does. Fits in there quite well. Okay, so you just put the whole darn thing in there. Done. Man, these are easy to fix. I won't have to sand that down now because that's part of the screen. Ha! Alright. Okay, there is the new screen installed. Now what I had to do was actually remove the screen cover from the screen, put it into the frame, and then I put the screen cover back on to hold it into the frame. Quest number 2 is to replace that darn cable, that flex cable. So let's see if we can do that. Alright, let's grab our trusty plastic opening tool here, clean off the end, and let's just kind of start prying at it here. Okay, that came up relatively easily. I don't think this is going to be quite as simple. Let's see if I can get under it. Oh, it's pretty stuck on there, guys. I don't know. Will this be the end of Uncle Matt? Well, I can tell you right now, no, it will not. Okay, I got that portion up rather easily. I just went in from the side and pulled up on it, and it popped right off. I'm going to try the same technique with this. Mind you, I don't really care too much about this cable because I got a new one. So again, if you're doing this without having a replacement, I would recommend being a little bit more cautious with your pulling. Whereas I'm just going to tear this sucker out of there. Come on. Oops. I broke it. It's when we bring in old metally here. It's got a little bit of a thinner tip, so I think I can get under it. Now that I've already broken it, I don't feel too bad about being really hard on it. Come on, get out of there. Man, it's still sticky. I feel like I could stick that to my car and it would survive the winter. This cable, remember, connects to the main board under here. So we're gonna have to slide the PSP up, which frees the cable. Old cable, be gone with you. Okay, and the last step, slap that new cable in, put everything back together, no problem. And it just goes on. It's even got the little tabs and it just pops on like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this side, remove the tape cover here, and stick it down very carefully and gently and make sure everything's in there correctly. Okay, here we go. Okay, she's on there. Now, I've seen tutorials do this before. You have to make sure you watch out for this, okay? Because I've seen people stick the new thing down and then realize, oh no, I have to route that cable through, so they're bending it and trying to put it in there. Here is how you properly do that. Take the cable, put it through, and now you can take your tape guard off and put your sticker on, no problem. You don't have to worry about routing that cable through because it's already routed. So, let's go ahead and take that off. And these little holes are guides, and I like that they built that in because it's kind of like they want you to be able to fix your stuff when it breaks, and that's just kind of refreshing. So we'll pull this off here. Connect the little piece again. Oops, it goes this way. I probably should have done this before I stuck that there. Would have been the smart thing to do. Make sure that when you're putting this portion back on, you flip it up and over, because I tried having it the other way and realized, oh, right, the screen has to plug into that. No problem. All right, so we got all this connected. We got our new cable in there. Everything's glued down perfectly, just the way it was when it rolled out of the PSP factory in, I don't know, wherever these things are made, Japan or something. Anyways, so we've got our new screen in place. We've got our new flex cable in place. Everything's glued down. Everything's good to go for reassembly. Reassembly is basically just doing everything I just did except backwards. So go ahead and hit reverse on your video now. Put everything back together. I'm going to use the magic of the internet and put this all back together for me. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Well, kids, I went and I put it back together and everything was going great until I got everything back together. I put the very last screw in and I turned it on, expecting my new vibrant screen to just jump out at me and congratulate me for doing such a great job on fixing the PSP. Unfortunately, it did the same thing. It turned on, you could hear the noise, but you couldn't see anything on the screen. I did a little research, I did a little more in-depth testing, and this particular PSP Go needed a new motherboard, which is about $60 to $80 on eBay right now. I went ahead, I decided to cut my losses, and I put it up for sale on eBay, and I made a little bit of extra money, but I did earn my money back for the PSP, the $25, the $30 for the brand new screen, and the $5 for the cable. So at least I got my money back, and I made a little bit of extra money for my time and effort. Hopefully the buyer of this particular PSP Go will actually be able to fix it fully, gets a new motherboard for it, whatever he has to do, and has some great times with it. I hope so. It just goes to show you, kids, that nothing in life is fair sometimes. And thank you very much for watching. Remember, you only get one shot. So do you take it or just let it slip? Mom's spaghetti.